Hello everyone. This story is called Broken Biscuit. This is Mr. Biscuit. He has 2 eyes, 2 arms and 2 legs, just like you and me. He is a walking, talking custard cream. He lives in a country called Foodland, which is a place full of funny looking houses. Mr. Biscuit lives in a funny looking house. His house is shaped like a biscuit tin. Aha! Now Mr. Biscuit owns the bakery in the town centre. His cookies and cakes are very popular. He has lots of regular visitors. Bread and milk often drop in to buy some donuts. And when I say some, I mean lots. A whole tray's worth. Now, this is a story about something that happened to Mr. Biscuit last spring. One morning, he was in the back room of the bakery. He was trying to reach a bag of flour from the top shelf. He stretched his arms as much as he could, but no matter how much he stretched, he couldn't reach that last bag of flour. Bother, he said. Then there was trouble. Mr. Biscuit overstretched himself and fell backwards, bringing the shelf down with him. Crush! Oh, crumbs, he yelped. Help! Poor Mr. Biscuit was covered in flour, but worse than that, the shelf had landed on top of his foot. Yow! He squealed. Mr. Biscuit tried to move, but he couldn't, so he shouted for help as loud as he could. Luckily, Bread and Milk arrived to buy some donuts. They always arrived at the bakery at the same time, every day. They walked up to the counter to find that Mr. Biscuit was nowhere to be seen. Where's Mr. Biscuit? Asked Bread. Mr. Biscuit? Mr. Biscuit? Where are you? I'm in here, he yelled. Bread, is that you? I've had an accident. I need your help. Quick, in the back room. Bread and Milk quickly dashed over the counter to help Mr. Biscuit. They gasped in horror at the sight of the shelf on top of Mr. Biscuit's foot. Come on, Milk, help me lift this off, he said. Be careful, warned Mr. Biscuit. With one giant effort, Bread and Milk lifted up the shelf and Mr. Biscuit managed to move his injured foot. But he was in tremendous pain. I'm calling for Dr. Pepper, said Milk, and he rang the salt shaker surgery. Dr. Pepper arrived soon after. He examined Mr. Biscuit's injured foot. Let me know where it hurts, and he began to gently touch the part of the foot on which the shelf landed on. All over, Doc. Ow! Dr. Pepper looked very concerned. I think we will need an x-ray to confirm what I think has happened. What's that, Doc? Asked Milk nervously. I think Mr. Biscuit has broken his ankle, he replied. An x-ray at the Foodland Hospital confirmed Dr. Pepper's original thought. Mr. Biscuit needed a small operation to mend his broken bone in his ankle. When he was allowed home, he had to wear a cast on his right foot until the ankle was fully healed. But that meant he had to take plenty of rest. But what about the bakery? Asked Bread. I'm sorry, you two. I'm going to have to close it until I can walk on my foot again. Bread and Milk did feel sad. Poor Mr. Biscuit, said Milk. The two friends sat together on a bench in the park, looking rather upset. And just then, Mr. Mash and Mrs. Scoop walked by, on their way to visit Mr. Biscuit in the hospital. You two look glum, said Mr. Mash. Can we help at all? He asked kindly. We want to help Mr. Biscuit, said Bread. And he's had to close the bakery, added Milk. Pondered Mr. Mash, and he had a think. He looked at Mrs. Scoop, and then he remembered how Bread and Milk had helped her make some homemade ice cream when she had run out. I've got it, he smiled. Bread and Milk, can you gather together all of your friends and meet me and Mrs. Scoop at school in an hour? I've got a fantastic idea. Mr. Mash was always full of fantastic ideas. Bread and Milk found all their friends and everyone gathered in the school playground. Hello everyone, said Mr. Mash. Now, as you all know, Mr. Biscuit has had an accident and the bakery has had to close for a little while. But I've got an idea. Tomorrow, instead of lessons, we are going to be making biscuits, cakes, cookies, donuts and sausage rolls to sell in Mr. Biscuit's bakery. Mr. Soup has agreed to help too. What a clever idea. Everyone cheered and quickly got home to prepare for the big bake in the morning. The next day, everyone in Foodland was busy baking and making cakes. Bread and Milk helped Mrs. Scoop to decorate some of her delicious apple turnovers. Yummy! Mr. Beef provided some of his fruits from the giant orchard, and Burger and Mr. Pickle helped to deliver them to houses all over Foodland. Mr. Mash had a special job for Bread and Milk. How would you two like to be Mr. Biscuit for a day, he asked, and work behind the counter of the bakery? Bread and Milk were delighted. Woohoo! The bakery was full of fantastic new flavoured cookies, cakes and crumbles, pies, pastries and sausage rolls. And when Mr. Biscuit heard the news, he burst with pride. A few weeks later, he visited the salt shaker surgery. Dr. Pepper told him some great news. Your ankle has healed, he said, and now you can go back to work again, but just take it nice and steady. And don't overstretch yourself, he chuckled. Mr. Biscuit agreed. He'll never be putting any bags of flour on the top shelf again. Ha ha! And that is the end of the story. Hope you enjoyed it. See you again next time.